Thank you so much for joining us for this Sprint Kickoff for our Accelerator program. We're so happy to have a really large group here today of not only Accelerator members, but also some people who are maybe a little bit Accelerator curious. So thank you for joining us. We are trying something a little bit different this time. So we will be breaking out into breakout rooms during today's assessment portion of the webinar. So you guys will be sorted into groups with companies similar in size to your own. Our hope is that you'll use that time to collaborate with companies like yours. We've got LeanScaper team members who will be popping around in the rooms to make sure you guys have what you need, and they're helping facilitate through the exercises. But we really want you to use this time as your own. We want you to have an opportunity for everybody to connect, thrive, and transform together today on our webinar. And we will go ahead and get started in just a moment. Hey, Christian, can I please get you to share your screen? Before we get started, before I pass the microphone to Mark, one of the key tools that we're going to be using on today's webinar is our business assessment tool. So we're going to drop a link to that in the chat here. What I'd love for everybody to do would be to download that tool by making a copy so you can use it in real time. If you don't want to use the Google Sheet version, you can go into the resources section across the bottom of your screen on Zoom and download a PDF. If you've got a printer handy and you wanted to do pen to paper for the assessment portion of today, you can do that too. So thank you, Christian, for sharing your screen there. Christian's really quickly going to show us how to make a copy. All right, so we're going to drop the link in the chat there. Thank you, Meg. Everybody's welcome to click into that link, that Google form. And then if you go over to File and make a copy, that's how you're going to be able to customize this business assessment for your organization. This is a live demo. Perfect. Thank you, Christian. That's great. So hopefully everybody was able to grab the self-assessment tool. As mentioned, we're going to be using it throughout today's webinar. And with that, I'm going to pass the microphone over to Mark.
All right, welcome everybody. Thank you all for being here. I know, as I've been saying lately, it is hard to find the time in June to show up to have continuous improvement meetings, but trust me, you're in the right place. The anxiety that you're feeling is just bad habits leaving the body. So we'll get through this next 3 hours. Whatever chaos is happening out there is going to cost you a few dollars, but I'm sure what we're going to talk about is going to make you many more. So try to stay focused. Try not to be on the phone too much. Try to stay with me. This is probably going to be the most important intensive monthly of the year. What we're doing is we're actually kind of pulling everything together of what we've talked about over the past few months as you've been onboarding at different various times. But what we're really going to be doing in July is building your strategic plan. Now today, what we're going to talk about is taking all of the 4 pillars together and really starting to get more methodical about really working in quarterly increments. So Q1 is come and gone. We're into Q2. What we're really working on is starting to get more focused on driving the 4 areas of the business forward in a little bit more balanced way so that as the year unfolds, we get better in each of those cycles. So you'll really start to hear me talk about quarter 1, quarter 2, quarter 3. We're always going to split the year into 4, and we're going to look at each of those as one cycle. Now, the whole point of continuous improvement is to get better in each cycle. It would be ridiculous to think that you could just read a book or attend a webinar and fix your business overnight. What we're doing is we're really focused on deploying a system 1 quarter at a time. And by the end of the 4th quarter, this should be such a habit for you and your team that you just recognize all of the things that we're doing to drive the continuous improvement initiatives deep into the organization. So what we're trying to do is we're just trying to build a muscle. We're preparing and we're laying a big foundation for the future by actually taking each of these quarterly cycles and running a playbook that begins to get really, really recognizable for everybody in the organization or anyone coming into it, so that everybody understands exactly how we get better and how we do things. And what we're really going to work on today is pulling that all together so that you can visualize exactly what each cycle looks like so that you can get better at these quarterly planning sessions in the business. And then what we're going to do in July at the Strategic Blueprint event is we're actually going to build those 3 and 5 year strategies so that you have something to really look forward to. You've got that North Star as you go through these quarterly cycles over the next few years. And every year we'll reset that annual plan, the 1 year plan, and we'll even tweak the 3 year and 5 year, but we're never going to veer so far off of it that it's unrecognizable. And so what you'll start to see is this whole LeanScaper operating system becomes second nature. And I think after today, you'll really start to see the operating system a lot different than you have probably up until now, because what we've really been teaching is a siloed approach to just talking about the components of the operating system. And today is really the first time where we're actually wrapping it all together into one conversation. So hopefully this is going to be an exciting conversation. Hopefully it's going to be a little bit enlightening for those of you that might just be a little bit newer to the program, and also for those who joined us immediately off the start. So with that, I'm going to go to the whiteboard and we're going to just kind of start to talk through this a little bit together. And then we're going to break into groups, and we're actually going to workshop very specific areas. So this is going to get very hands-on this week. This isn't going to be spectator sport. This is going to be really hands-on. You're going to get in the game. So what I really want to kind of talk about is implementing the LeanScaper operating system. There is no better time to implement an operating system than when you are really up to your elbows in the chaos. Don't trick yourself and tell yourself that you'll fix this next winter. That is a bad old habit. It's ridiculous. Anybody that tries to work on the business in the off season fails miserably. That's your time to chill out a little bit. Yes, it's also your time to revisit how things went in the last year. Yes, but it's not the time to build every system that the business needs. That's just kind of crazy. And I think what happens in the industry is we put up with chaos all year thinking we're going to fix it in the off season, and then we forget what our problems are, or we come up with some half-baked systems in the off season that we tell ourselves will work, get super busy in the spring, and the wheels fly off of everything. So you are in the right place at the right time. There's no better time to fix your business than when it's at its peak. That is the right time. You have to jump out of bed every day and face the hardest thing in front of you if you want to get the maximal success, not kind of going around your problems. And so your problems are at their worst when everything is stressed to the max, which is when you're busiest. And that's why we want to talk about these things right now, when the problems are very real and we can feel that stress, because that stress is telling us something and we want to do something with it. Now, what we're really going to talk about today is pulling it all together. But before, I wanted to really kind of talk about a couple of key things. First, why are we doing this? Like in your company, I think it's really important that you talk about this with everybody that you joined with here today, but also everybody else in the organization. Why are we deploying an operating system? There has to be a really strong reason for this in order to get that intrinsic motivation and that buy-in from everybody on the team. So I think it's pretty important that you actually talk about why we're even doing this. And that big why, for me at least, when I first built an operating system for my own landscape business, I called it the Landscape Production System. We've turned that into LeanScaper. Now, when I built it, I can tell you exactly why. And it's funny because I was actually looking back in some old journals over the weekend as I was thinking about today. And the why became really clear to me when I was going through some of my notes from way back in 2004, 2005. Now, what I actually noticed was clarity of vision and direction. That was a big reason. When we would have meetings and start to talk about why we needed to meet more, it was just everybody around me was wondering, hey, where are we going and why? Well, like, where is this company going? Now, what we want to do with this operating system is we want to create a vision that's so clear for everybody in the company that they can see that if they jump on this bus and join you on your mission, that this vision is big enough to provide for them and their families as well. Now, this is the most important component, and you've heard me say this many times, and you notice it once you get to know me, I repeat the same stuff over and over and over again. I don't really have that much to say. It's actually the same stuff over and over and over again. I'm just trying to make sure that this becomes part of your culture if this is the culture you want. Continuous improvement relies around reps. You have to repeatedly do the same things over and over and over and over until it becomes your culture or the way it is. That's my definition of culture. Now, what we're trying to do here is we're trying to figure out a way where we can make sure that this vision is so clear that if we asked anybody in the company, hey, where's this company going to be in 10 years, that everybody could answer. And that vision's big enough that everybody in the company knows and believes and trusts that that vision is big enough to allow them to continue to grow, not only financially, but also grow in terms of relationships and connections, also grow in terms of knowledge, so that as they go through life, whether they stay with the company forever or not, that they've created a better life for themselves and their families by getting more skills and earning more money, and also creating connection with the community and with others, and living a life that really feels purposeful. And so ultimately, this vision has to be clear. Now, second, we need to create a business that allows owners and everybody in the company to have some time to enjoy life, some freedom, and a lot of focus. And now this time and freedom, time, obviously we want a little more personal time, if we want to kind of call it that. But while we're at work, we want more freedom and more focus. And that's usually not the case. And it's not the case because of a lack of leadership. The leader makes it that way. And this operating system is designed to help you as the leaders in your company make it that way. That's why we're doing this. Now, next up, we want to create peace of mind and less stress. Now, this peace of mind, it's not just for you. It's not just for the leadership. It's for everybody in the company. When people understand where they're going and how they're going to get there, they can relax, and then they can start to focus on the things that actually matter, which typically turn up on the scorecards. And so we want to make sure that people understand what metrics actually matter, that actually create more opportunity for the company and for everybody in it. And so we have to create this alignment. And that's really why some of these key core tools that we're going to talk about next are just so important. So we want to make sure that as owners and leaders, that you all have a lot more confidence in the team around you. And it's really hard to have confidence in people when you feel like they don't even understand the rules or the scoreboard or the way the game should be played. And so what we're trying to do is create organizational alignment with the operating system so that you have the confidence of knowing that everybody on your team knows what good looks like, and they know when they're winning and when they're losing, so that they can self-regulate. And when you notice that you have underperformers on the team who just don't care to self-regulate, then it's much easier to make rational decisions around who to keep, who to let go, and who to promote, and who to train, really, quite honestly. And so what we're really trying to do here is create this level of confidence that you've never had before to grow and scale the company, to make big bets, to make these big decisions like potentially buying other companies or adding other locations, or maybe preparing the company for an exit. Like realistically, everybody has to retire, and we want to make sure that we've got this confidence in the team to a point where as an owner you could actually feel like you could sell the company and hand it to somebody, and they would actually continue to run the company the way it's been run. And sure, they'll evolve things, and hopefully they evolve it for the better. But you want to build a company that is actually saleable, whether you sell it to your employees, to a private equity investor, to a strategic buyer, or maybe you pass it on to your family. Who knows? We want to build something that's built to last. And then last, we want to be proud of what we do every day. We don't want to feel as though we're fake news, right? We want to build a company where when we say what we're going to do, we know that we're going to do it because we've built a team of people who understand what good looks like. And then you can be proud of what you do. And you've got pride in the brand as a team, and it's something you built together. Nobody can ever take that away. And I think the purpose behind actually having pride in the brand and building a legacy brand, something that's going to be around long after you, is something that a lot of people just don't understand. But when you actually get that right, and when you see the brand that you've built continue to evolve past you, and you realize that everything in this world is bigger than you, then I think it really kind of drives this other purpose back to, I believe, our spirituality and our creator. We're building something that serves something bigger than us. So what I want to talk about, ultimately today, we're going to really hyper focus on each area of the business. We're going to start with finance. We're going to move into people, operations, and customer. Now, these are the 4 pillars of the LeanScaper operating system. These are super important in each area to themselves, but they're also super important to each other. There is no silos in a really successful business. But let's be honest, in most companies, these departments do sort of operate in a silo effect, or in some companies, some of these departments are missing entirely. Now, regardless of whether you're a startup and you're at 200,000 or you're the biggest company on the call doing 80 million, it really doesn't matter. You need to have a very integrated set of departments for finance, people, operations, and customer. And that could just be the owner being all 4 departments at the management layer in a startup, or it might be multiple people in each department in a bigger company. Now, what we really want to make sure that we're doing, though, is doing this in balance. This is where most companies really struggle. I can say this without a doubt for myself, and I'm sure many of you on the call, and whether you're owners or managers or leaders, can kind of identify with this. For me, I personally really like operations. It's not uncommon to show up and find me in a skid steer because I like doing the work. I actually love landscaping. So when I'm out on the job sites or I start to think about improving the business, my natural progression is to go to operations. And so I'm always putting a ton of emphasis on ops. Now, I have to find other people who maybe are a little more passionate about some of these other areas to help me out. Like, for example, finance. I'm passionate about knowing how much I need to charge and understanding overhead. And let's be honest, I built software that does this. So clearly I'm pretty focused on finance, but it's really not the thing that gets me excited. Oftentimes people think of me as the numbers guy or the data guy, but that's actually not really true. I'm actually just more of an ops guy. I love seeing the jobs come together really efficiently. I get fired up about that. So I put a lot more time in there. And also, I think it's the hardest thing to get right for a business because it's much harder to find an incredible trades operator than it is to find an incredible finance leader. So, what I had to do, though, was learn how to find an incredible finance leader, communicate, talk, meet, set strategy, shared goals, and then manage and lead that amazing finance person. And that's hard to do because after all, I'm the ops guy. I like just hopping in the machines, doing the work, laying pavers, planting trees. That's my jam. So it's real hard for me to get excited about finance. So, what was probably happening is heavy emphasis here and then pretty light emphasis over here. I'm not that interested in every little process map around finance, just not my thing. Now, same on people. I figured, hey, if I could put a job ad out and someone would show up, and you've probably heard me laugh and joke about, I used to throw people t-shirts if they could catch it, they had a job, right? I would try anybody out. But that didn't work very well. And again, I just didn't have enough process here to get really good at growing people. And then over on the customer side, I was great at sales. I could sell anybody just about anything, but I wasn't all that good at follow-up. When they'd call and say, hey, listen, Mark, there's a problem. We've got a dead plant. I'd say, oh, yeah, I'll be there. No problem. I'll write it down in my book. And then I'm 5 pages later on my book the next day, and that's out the window. And so, customer wasn't getting the care they wanted either. So you can see heavy emphasis on ops, not much on customer, not enough on people, not enough on finance. And what you end up with is a really fierce operation that's kind of crumbling at the seams because, oh, I didn't get my credit card paid on time, or I forgot to pay the government, so I got a 10% fine, or shit, I didn't collect enough money this week and it's payday on Friday and it's now Thursday night and I got to scramble around Friday morning to get money in the bank. People, I'm not training people. I know I should train them, but we train them on the job. But we miss a few steps along the way with the administrative side of tracking it, making sure that it's consistent, making sure that people got the foundational training before going to the field. And then all these people need to understand what their future looks like. They need individual development plans. They need to know that this company is actually going to serve their future goals. Well, I'm so busy running the operation, I'm not having those conversations with people. So they start to assume that it's just a self-serving business, that the owner's just trying to make all this money and he doesn't really care about anybody else. But that wasn't the case, but it gets misunderstood because nobody's doing this. And then over here on the customer side, again, not enough systems, right? There's not automated emails. We don't have automated lead captures, all these things. So we're missing leads and we're upsetting customers and our warranty process wasn't dialed in. And so when you add all these things up, when they're not in balance, you can be amazing at doing the work and still have a chaotic business. Now, what we're here to do today is figure out where your business is out of balance so that we can start to change that, right? What we want to do ultimately is we want to make these arrows the same weight in the business. And ultimately what we want to do is make sure that we've got a leader in place for each and they're all moving. So when we see over here, when we see that finance is a little behind, when we draw our line, we say, okay, let's put a little extra emphasis on financial acumen. Let's create some systems. Or maybe it's time to upgrade the leader of finance because we don't have one, or the one that we have is not at the level we need because the business has outgrown that person, and that happens. Doesn't mean we have to fire people, doesn't mean we always have to replace them, but sometimes we have to bring in experts. And if your business is scaling faster than you're growing people, then you're going to have to do that more often than not. But wherever this imbalance is what we're going to focus on today. And that's really what we're here to do. So today, what you're going to notice is there's going to be an emergence of a pattern. And this pattern is really important. And I think many of you have probably already figured out the pattern. And as you know, LeanScaper's new. There is a book coming out very soon that kind of lays this pattern out a little bit more directly. And thank you all for being the early adopters and hopping on and trusting that we would actually deliver value each week like this. But what I really want you to walk away with this week is this pattern that I'm about to show you. Now, this shouldn't happen overnight, and it didn't happen overnight, but I think it's going to be very clear for those of you that have been around for a little while. What we're ultimately going to talk about is these core tools that drive the execution in the business. Now, these core tools that we're going to talk about them in each pillar. So for finance, for customer, for operations and people, we want to have strategy and focus. We want to have execution and alignment. We want to have time and workflows organized, and we want to create room for training and growth. And so the 10 core tools that we're going to talk about in each of the 4 areas that are going to help you actually take the assessment today and then create some really actionable plans for this next cycle, this next quarter. We're going to use all 10 of these core tools to plan each cycle. This is really important. You got to kind of get into this flow of doing this in each area of the business. Now, this is why it's so important that we have a leader assigned for each area of the business. It's a lot of work for one person. Now, for those of you, the owners, that don't have a leader in each of these 4 areas, there's good news and bad news. The good news is you get to create the foundation in all 4. The bad news is you have to do all the work. The point here is you are building a foundation whereby you can now hire and attract and then onboard a leader in each area of the business with some certainty that they understand what your strategy is for that core pillar, and then how you expect to manage metrics, manage SMART goals, manage people, how often you're going to meet. And this way, when you go to hire, let's say your finance leader, your people leader, or your new sales leader, they come in to some type of recognizable company. They come in and they say, oh, I get it. There's an annual strategy that explains exactly what this company plans to do. That annual strategy is super important. I can share the annual strategy with new hires, particularly management staff. They can read the annual strategy and almost immediately know where the company's at today and what the company's trying to be a year from now, 3 years from now, and 5 years from now. Now, if you don't have an annual strategy, I can almost guarantee you it will be next to impossible for you to hire and onboard high quality executives or high quality director level people to manage any one area of your business. So what you'll tend to do is probably what I did, which is a massive mistake. You keep trying to move everybody from within into your management roles. And that is just not always possible. Sometimes the people from within don't have the education or the credentials or the experience to actually run the playbook to grow people or run finance or grow sales or marketing. After all, many of our people are fantastic on the operational side, but moving them into some of those other areas doesn't always make a great deal of sense. And so we want to be careful to have an annual plan that we can follow, but also one that we can use to guide us when hiring and guide new hires to come into the company and add value. One mistake I made personally, and I see a lot of you making it, you hire these people to be managers or directors, and when they come in, there is no recognizable system. And when they fail to create one, you lose faith in them and you fire them. Well, that's a bit of a problem because oftentimes you're hiring a director, and a director's job is not to write the strategy, it's to execute the strategy. The owner's job is to write the strategy, certainly collaborating with their key people, but to write the strategy so that you can then hire directors and managers to execute that strategy. Now, if you've got chaos in your business like I had in mine many years, I will tell you, the problem is you. It's not the people you're hiring. If there's no written strategic plan, if there's no strategy for finance, people, operations, and customers, then when you hire director level people, they spin their wheels. You may as well not hire them. They might even be causing more damage than good because they're coming in and asking all kinds of questions to all kinds of people who have no answers, including you. And you have to start with strategy. Once we've got that down, then we're going to get into key initiatives. The key initiatives are going to tell us what we're actually going to do to make that strategy become our new reality. So again, the strategy and the vision tell us where we're going. The key initiatives identify generally how we're going to get there. If I was driving to California from my house here in Toronto today, one initiative would be to decide what vehicle I'm going to drive, right? That's an initiative. And then I'm going to start to think, okay, how am I going to go there? Well, I got to plot my route. Where am I going to stay each night? Well, I got to book some rooms, right? And so each of these initiatives start to tell us how this vision becomes our new reality. And when you get this right, everybody around you starts to make sense of it all. Now, once I've got the key initiatives, then and only then can I then say, hey, listen, let's create some SMART goals for everyone in the company to align to these initiatives that deliver our vision. So this is me now saying, as SMART goals, I could say, hey, listen, I got to get my vehicle into the shop to get the oil changed before I do my drive to California. Easy little SMART goal. I got to go on Google and plot out my course and figure out if I drive 8 to 10 hours every day, where are the best places to stop, right? And so I've got to create these micro steps now that allow me to create an execution plan. So my SMART goals are going to make sense, right? I want to get to California in 5 days. Okay, perfect. Now that I know I want to get there in 5 days, I can start to reverse engineer success so that actually happens. And so the SMART goals start to get meaningful. But what you notice that almost immediately came out was metrics, right? I want to get to California in 5 days. That's what success looks like. Now, there's no point in me having a strategy and initiatives and goals without telling people how to keep score, right? So I need metrics and I need scorecards so that people know exactly what metric they're shooting for and a scorecard that tells them exactly how they're doing. Without these things, people feel lost. They just don't have that intrinsic motivation to keep pushing. Now, if this all sounds like a lot of work, I'm going to tell you it's a lot less work than running with chaos. Much less, trust me. This sounds hard. This is easy compared to scaling a business with no systems, no scoreboards, no metrics, no SMART goals, no alignment. That is just a brain melt every day. Once you have this in place, everything gets better and you will notice that everyone around you gets better. And that's your job as the owner of the company. Your job is to make everyone around you better than they are today. And if you go to work and do that day after day after day, not only will they get better, you will get better. And as a company, the leading indicator of growth is the growth of the leader and all of the people in the company. And that's what we're really focused on. So the next big step here is recurring meetings. Now, this is when, as the owner or the leader, you get together with everybody and you talk about reality. You can't talk about reality when you didn't start by saying, here's where we're going, here's how we get there, here's how we're going to measure it. Now, this is all we talk about every week is, hey, are we on track to get where we're going? What are our flow interruptions? What should we be focused on fixing? What resources are missing? We're having much better conversations and we're having them every week. And now this cycle, this quarter, gives us 12 opportunities to get together every week and talk about the things that need to be talked about in the moment. And then over that quarter, we're also going to have 3 monthly meetings to review the scorecards. So each week we're talking about what we need to talk about to make things better in the moment, which I like to call tactical meetings. And then once a month, we're actually just reflecting on the metrics, looking at the scorecard to make sure that we're actually making progress. And we're trying to figure out where we're not making progress so that we can put a little extra emphasis in those areas. And then what we do with the time blocking is we put time into the areas that need more time, right? So I have just created recurring meetings to talk about what needs more attention. Next, I have to have recurring block time, and I have to make sure I give everybody enough of it to actually start to improve in each area of the business. Because most business owners tell their staff, hey, I really want to improve the business, but then they don't give them a second or a minute or any opportunity or framework or meeting to actually make it happen. And then they get upset at other people for not making the business better, when in fact they made it just about impossible for anybody to actually make it better. So we have to be pretty self-aware that time blocking and sticking to the time blocking matters. As a leader, if you're missing your meetings that you have set up for continuous improvement, that's telling everybody in your company that you just don't care. Once you've got a really good system and it's been running for 3 months, 6 months, 9 months, or a year, you can miss some meetings and have the confidence that they're going to keep everything rolling forward on their own because they understand it. It's recognizable. But in the meantime, make sure you're at the meetings. Make sure that you never miss a meeting, that you stick to the agenda, and that you talk about the things that need to be talked about. The metrics, the initiatives, the problems, the flow interruptions, the continuous improvement ideas. Talk about the hard stuff. Don't talk about the weather. Don't complain about what's wrong. Just get to the point and come up with real ideas for continuous improvement. And we want to make sure that we make time for those improvements, which is calendar worship. If we're noticing that we're having problems, let's say, for example, in closing sales deals, our close rate's too low, we're going to create time to make improvements, which might be daily training for the sales team. Every morning between 8 and 9:30, we're going to do role play training and sales training 5 days a week until this number gets better. That's what we're going to do. Now, again, that's why calendar worship is so important. It's a key tool. We want everybody in the company to understand what good looks like. And if we want to actually make that clear, we should be helping everybody in the company create their calendar and making sure they understand that we expect them to spend time in these blocks so that we get the outcomes. This isn't about control or micromanagement. This is us explaining, if you spend time in these areas, we should see these outcomes. This is not you trying to control people. It's not trying to be overwhelming. It's actually trying to create focus and clarity so that people can rest easy knowing that if they spend time and they focus in these areas and follow the time blocking allocated, that they will be successful in their position in your eyes as their leader. And if you're meeting every week, they have trust and they have a little bit of relief from the anxiety of wondering whether or not they're succeeding, because you've given them a strategy, you've given them some weekly time, you've allocated time to do the work. And if there's a problem with the time you've allocated, they can tell you each week and you can make changes from there. So we want to really stick to the calendar. And of course, as we understand more and more about the business, as we unearth problems in the business, continuous mistakes that are happening, or continuous flow interruptions in any workflow, what we end up doing is we create SOPs that we can then train the staff to on an ongoing basis that improve the way that we do things. And so every single time we go through continuous improvement cycles once a month, we should really be coming out with some more SOPs that improve what we've been doing. And again, we need some time in the calendar to build SOPs, and then we need some time in the calendar to train to those SOPs. And so we want to get that right. And then in each department or as a whole company, depending on the size of the company, we need continuous improvement boards. Now, a continuous improvement board could be in your job site trailer, it could be in your shop, it could be in the office, it could be just about anywhere. Now, I really think that there should be a continuous improvement board for each team in your company at the crew level, department level, and the overall company wide. And the reason I believe it's so important to get it down to the crew level is because they know exactly where all the flow interruptions are in your business. It's usually you're not delivering materials on time, or they're not getting clear information, or the drawings that you're giving them are not good, or the equipment that you're giving them is not reliable, or it's not the right equipment, or there's not enough equipment. Or you're giving them people who are unskilled and untrained and don't have the basics, or they've got bad attitudes. They know all these problems, and we want to see those problems on continuous improvement boards. Whether you have one crew or 100 crews, the more data that we get to understand where our problems are, the more likely we are to make really good rational decisions to eliminate the waste in the order that we should eliminate it. Where are our biggest problems? Which ones should we prioritize? We always want to get the most out of every effort, so we're looking for the highest return on our time invested. When we decide to fix a problem, let's fix one that's going to have a really big return on time invested. We're either going to save a lot of money or we're going to make a lot more money because of these continuous improvements. Now, at the end of the day, what we're trying to do with all of this extra profit, as everybody knows here, is we're trying to improve the lives of everybody in the company. We're trying to improve the company and its brand. And yes, we're trying to improve the outcome for the owners and shareholders in the business. Because quite honestly, in most landscape companies, there's a shortfall in all of these areas, and we want to make it better for everyone at the end of the day. And the final stroke here is training. We can't just do all this stuff and then not train it to become organizational or tribal knowledge. What we're trying to do is build all these changes into our day-to-day with SOPs, and then we want to train everybody in the company to follow those SOPs so that they can finish your sentences in your absence, but better yet, learn enough that they can form their own. SOPs are not meant to be a step-by-step everything where somebody just zones out like a robot. These are meant to allow people to creatively apply the SOP to get a continuous outcome, knowing that there's probably going to be a lot of varying pathways in the industry we work in. It's rainy, it's sunny, it's hot, it's cold, customers change their mind, equipment breaks, materials don't show up. We create SOPs that allow people to understand what good looks like, not to turn them into robots. So don't overcomplicate the SOPs and don't build too many. If you don't have people that are smart enough to fill in the blanks, you've hired the wrong people. We hire smart people who want more, who are intrinsically motivated to go to work and do what needs to be done to improve themselves and improve the outcome that they have each day working for their families and the people they provide for. And so we have to start with the right people. And if you don't believe that you've got the right people, don't try to make up for it by overcomplicating your systems, because all that does is create that problem systemically forever. We want simple systems and smart people. All right, I think we're going to take 5 minutes. We're going to take a 5-minute break, and then we're going to come back and we're going to get into the interactive exercise.
So you guys, while Mark works through the next portion of today's webinar, what we'd really love for you to do is be focused on the first part of the business assessment, which is grow revenue and profit. And we'd love for you guys to start scoring yourselves in these different 5 sections. So when you get into your breakout room, you're ready to talk through this with your peers. Within our breakout rooms, what we're going to be doing is asking for volunteers to share where are you scoring really low, and then we're going to start to dig deeper into why that might be the case. So, some of you who are familiar with lean principles and LeanScaper, you know that we utilize the 5 whys. Whenever we need to get to the root of a problem, we're asking ourselves why 5 times in order to figure out what is the true driving factor behind, in this case, a low score on our business assessment. So that's one of the exercises that we're going to be doing together in our breakout room. All right, looks like we're ready to go. I'm going to pass the mic back to Mark.
All right, great. So the self-assessment form is going to be used following each little section that I'm going to go through. So what we're going to do, I'm going to give you a little 10-minute overview on growing revenue and profit. I'm going to give you a little bit of a example of going through those core tools that we talked about, the 10 tools, as it applies to growing revenue and profit, which is our finance section. So I'm going to talk about this. Then you're going to actually do the self-assessment, check your score, and then you're going to go through the same exercise as I have. And so let's jump right in. I'm going to cover the finance section first. Now, our goal here is to build a predictable profit engine. Ultimately, every business has to figure out how to build profit predictably and sustainably. Now, in the landscape business, most people don't get this right. Let's be honest, there's 2% average profit in the industry, yet there's many companies making 15 to 20% net. So clearly, those who've got it figured out really figured it out, and the rest, not so much. Now, profits aren't so good. That's only one part of the problem. The other problem is the wages are way too low. They're below the poverty line for a lot of the frontline staff, and they're not too far off for a lot of the owners. Let's be honest. People are not earning as much money as they should in the industry. So every business needs fuel. That fuel is revenue, but the real fuel is profit. There's no point in having lots of revenue and no profit. Otherwise, you don't have very good fuel for continuous improvement because you can't afford to pay people more money and you can't afford to invest in the business when there's no profit. And so we have to build a profit engine, something that happens really, really consistently. And there's some really, really specific things that have to be in place. Now, I like to go to first principles thinking. I regularly share that I am not the most intelligent person on the planet. I think I'm actually super simple. I just like to take things back to the most simple layer possible. We need revenue, and it has to be the best revenue we can find. We need the right price to make sure that the revenue is the right revenue. And we need efficiency in order to make sure that even though we price it right, that we execute it right. Ultimately, in its simplest form, your business can only succeed if you've got the right price and if you can get the work done fast enough to actually end up with a profit. I think it's important that not just you as the leadership team, but everybody in your company rallies around that. That is the most basic, fundamental thing in your business. We need revenue to keep coming through the door, which means we need happy customers and we have to attract people. We have to get our pricing right so that that pricing allows for all of our costs, both overhead and direct costs, to ensure that there's profit left over when the job's done so that we've got a healthy business for everyone in it. And we have to make sure that we can do the work efficiently enough that we can actually end up with that profit, because lots of companies can get the right price but not execute the work fast enough to ever make any money doing it. This is kind of a depressing conversation, but it's pretty real. We have to be good at pricing, we have to be good at efficiency, and we have to be good at attracting revenue. And in the end, we have to have a good, healthy profit left over, or the business is never going to succeed. So you're going to go through this self-assessment on finance, growing revenue and profit, and you're going to ask yourself a few questions. You're going to score yourself, and you're going to get a score out of 5. Now, the score out of 5, maybe you've got a 3 out of 5. Maybe it's a 2. What we're trying to do is figure out exactly where the lowest score is, and then we're trying to drive new strategies with supporting initiatives to actually create that balance that I talked about so that we get more equal attention in every part of the business. So getting started, if we say, hey, what's our strategy? Well, I hope that by now, if you've been part of the program for a while, your hedgehog is clear. Your hedgehog is the one thing that you plan to be best at. We plan to be the best luxury landscape company in Columbus, Ohio. Or we plan to be the best HOA service provider in Southwest Florida. Or we plan to be the best snow and ice management company in the upper Northwest, wherever it happens to be. We want to be super clear on what that hedgehog is. Then we want to be really clear on who our ICP is. Who is our ideal customer profile that we're doing this for, right? We want to be super clear on who that is. Once we've got that and we look at our score, we can say, well, hey, based on our score, we're kind of low in these areas. So why don't we create some initiatives that fill those voids on our assessment? And so our initiatives should be the voids found in the assessment. Now, your guides will help do this as well, but we're giving you the self-assessment. And sneak preview, there's probably some pretty cool AI software coming that's just going to do this for you. In the meantime, you're learning how, you're setting a foundation. We want to make sure that we fill the voids found in our business assessment by actually creating SMART goals that fill them, right? And so the SMART goals always tell us who's responsible, how we're going to measure it. We make sure that it's doable, that it's achievable, right? And then we always try to make sure that we figure out who's responsible and we put a timeline on it. And so what are those SMART goals going to look like to fill those voids, right? We're going to work on those today. Now, in July, we're going to build off of everything you're working on this month. So make sure you do the homework, because what we build in July will change your future. It will change the financial outcome for you and your families. It's going to change the brand and the legacy that you build. When you've got a long-term strategy and you work in cycles, quarterly cycles like this, you just keep getting better and better and better. And when you look back 5 years from now, it's a result of all of these initiatives and SMART goals and the way that you manage to the metrics that changed your financial future, that changed the purpose of your work, and changed you, quite honestly, for the better. So we want to be super focused on strategy, initiatives, SMART goals, and metrics. And then what we want to do is we want to look at scorecards once a month to make sure that we're on track. Now, we want to know what to look at. So the metrics on your strategy doc like this are going to help, right? We're going to say, well, the metrics for growing revenue and people are revenue, gross profit, cost per lead, revenue per hour. You can put your list down of the metrics that you're going to use to track whether or not your strategies, initiatives, and SMART goals are actually changing your reality. That's what we're trying to do. We're trying to change our reality. Reality distortion, as Steve Jobs used to call it. Reality distortion is us just saying, here's what today looks like, here's what our future looks like. If we do all of these things, then this future will become our new reality. And so the scorecard rhythm really matters, right? We want to make sure that we're meeting about this every month so that in the next month, when we're doing a sprint, we know what to talk about in the weekly meetings. What are we fixing? How are we fixing it? How's that happening? We're always talking. Then we're going to put the time blocking in. Now, an example here under growing revenue and profit might be, hey, let's put the owner into an approval role where every bid goes through the owner in a smaller company, not every company here. But let's make sure that we do that until we get what good looks like to a point where we can put an SOP around it and let other people bid without the owner being involved. And again, we're not trying to create controls that create an inch by inch kingdom for that owner, so they're tied to the business forever. We're trying to create improvement strategies to make sure that we document and we create an SOP, we solve that problem, then we transfer that knowledge through training so that everybody in the company can get this good. So where the owner spends their time right now should be strategically improving the broken or missing systems and processes, and then documenting the new way of doing things with SOPs, making sure they're supporting training, and then going and spending a little more time looking at the CI board or the continuous improvement board to decide what to fix next. So this is really the cycle that we're always going to be talking about, right? We're always going to be talking strategy, initiatives, SMART goals, metrics, scorecard, time blocking, SOPs, and the CI board. These are the major tools of the LeanScaper operating system. And as we look at assessments, we should always be thinking of all of these tools as the delivery mechanism of our lean continuous improvement initiatives. So that said, I'm going to give you guys a little bit of time right now to work on the self-assessment, and then we're going to split up into some groups and have a discussion around what these initiatives could be or should be in your company. And I'd like you guys to share some ideas around how to solve some of the problems that you're seeing. So again, our assessment categories, we track profitability using tools like estimated versus actual hours. Our pricing strategy reflects the value we deliver and aligns with market demand. We understand which services are most and least profitable in the business. Revenue's grown consistently year over year, where our profit margins meet or exceed industry benchmarks. When you score on these, we want to see what the overall score looks like, because we want to look at all 4 pillars against one another to see where we're stronger in one pillar or another. But within each pillar, we really want to understand how these 5 specific areas look so that we can create really, really meaningful strategies, initiatives, SMART goals, and supporting metrics to make sure that all 5 of these areas come up so that this pillar comes up and catches up to the leading pillar in your business. So what we're really trying to do is kind of get that foot race happening on each level within a pillar so that all 4 pillars start to run together. And so if there's things missing in any of these 5 areas, this should be the basis of your SMART goals and the initiatives that you're gonna plan for your next quarter. And this way, every quarter, we're filling a big void. This is what continuous improvement looks like, and this is what the LeanScaper operating system is built to do. I'll give you guys a few minutes to jump right into that assessment.
Awesome. Hey guys, how's everyone doing?
All right. So we track profitability using tools like estimated versus actual, hours and costs. So we use LMN currently, and I gave ourselves a 5, just for the fact that we do use the job costing. We go in, we enter every invoice. So estimated versus actual hours, our crew's clocking into LMN, the crew app. We are watching everything daily. And we discuss it daily at every single huddle in the morning, Monday through Friday.
Awesome. Any suggestions or tips on how to use that successfully for any of the peers that are in here in LMN that may be sitting there that gave themselves a 2 or a 3 in that category?
Consistency and just start. Start with a project. Just enter them daily. When the invoices come in from your supplier and your vendors, enter them in immediately into job costing. Don't wait till the end of the week. So all of the information is updated daily, and you're not scrambling for receipts. If you're not receiving emails from those vendors, and you have the paper copies, enter everything in daily, so it's kept up. We used to use an Excel spreadsheet before we started using LMN in 2022, and it was pretty shocking that we did really well on our job costing, but using LMN or whatever software you're using, it will give you the real accurate information. And if you're not using it, how do you know you're profitable? So that's bottom line. How do you know you're profitable? How do you know the jobs that you're offering, or the projects that you're offering and the services you're offering are profitable? That's one way we changed the scope of services we offered because of our job costing. We were not making money on certain projects or not being as efficient. And if you're not using it, baby step it.
Awesome. Thank you, Kristen. Christy, you had your hands up.
So in the finance section, I did give us 22 out of 25 because I think we do a really good job with that, especially since we work with the Herring Group for the last three years now, and they've really helped us to get a better understanding of our numbers and margins and where we need to be.
Is there an area in the finance section you want to just elaborate on a bit that was one of those lower scores in that area?
Our profit margins meeting or exceeding industry benchmarks. I gave ours, that's the only one I didn't give us a 5 in. I gave us a 2 because I think our profit margin, they fluctuate a lot. And I know right now, specifically right now, we're not doing kind of hot. But Joe can more elaborate on that than I can.
Yeah, I mean, so we've been with Aspire for 3 years. We've been with Herring Group for 1, a little over 1.
But okay.
Well, they've done our pricing and stuff, but like really the consulting, like subscription and week-to-week meetings, we've been with them for just over a year. And yeah, I mean, we're in the growth curve. They improve year over year. I would say substantially. Last year was a bad year, just economically for us, where we made growth moves, but the revenue didn't grow, so that affected everything. But as far as like the hours and the cost of jobs, the profitability's increased on average throughout the whole time. But still, they say 12%. I want to be there, so we're not there yet.
One of those goals to come out of that section. Anyone else have anything in the finance section that they wanted to go through? Brady, you have your hand up, I see.
One sec
Mark?
there, Dave, just while we have Christy and sorry, what was the gentleman's name?
Joe.
Oh, Christy and Joe. So this is a great example when you're a 22 out of 25 right now. I'm going to challenge you and say the score's too high if the profit isn't where you want it to be. And so what we want to do is score ourselves hard, right? We don't want to be easy on ourselves. We want to be hard on ourselves, because continuous improvement comes from being hard on ourselves. And so we can celebrate that the company is a 22 out of 25 when the profits are where we want it to be. And so what I'd say here is if we were to drill into this one area and say profit's not quite where we want it to be, I'd write down the 5 or 6 things that you come up with, and sounded like you guys came up with some really good ones. And then we want to take those and turn them into initiatives or SMART goals that change that faster. And we want to change that in this quarter. Like, I don't think it's reasonable to say, oh, well, we're in a growth cycle and profit's not as good as it should be. Everybody says that, but it's not true. We want to say, what are we going to do in this cycle that is going to increase our profit in this cycle? And what are we going to do that will increase our profit this year? And so once we ask ourselves those few questions, the answers become really, really motivating. If I do this, my profit will be higher. And so finish that sentence for me. This is a really good example for everybody here to work on. Finish that sentence for me right now. If I did X, we would be more profitable next month. What's the first thing that comes to mind?
Project time management.
If we
oversight.
managed our labor variance, our estimated versus actual hours daily, then we probably wouldn't miss as often. And so we want to make that awareness of hours a daily event. We want to make sure that when our crew leaders start every morning, that they tell the rest of the crew how the labor variance numbers look, so that everybody can self-regulate. So that could be a SMART goal. We want to get our labor variance in line this month. And then you can put that right down to account managers or project managers or department managers, and then cascade it even further down to the crew managers or foremen or crew leads, whatever title you use. And what we want to do is we want to come up with 2 or 3 of those for the next month and for this quarter. And we want to check those boxes and make sure that we fix those things, because we don't want to be a 22 or 23 out of 25 ever. We kind of want to always be more like an 18 out of 25, so that there's these 7 points that we can go get somewhere. And so that's why we want to score each other so hard.
Mm-hmm.
What would some others be, Joe?
Oh, no, he was saying that he scored lower than I do because I'm the pessimist. And I was trying to just give us the benefit of the doubt, because a lot of the other areas are bad. But financially, I think based on these questions, I think we do a really good job of understanding our pricing, knowing which services are most profitable. So I was looking at it from that perspective, not that we don't have room to grow. I just know there's a lot of other areas that we're really, really struggling with. And it kind of rolls up into, it's like a domino effect. So if we can get those things.
I'll challenge that way of thinking, because that's my job. I'll challenge that way of thinking because the other areas are probably problems because your profit isn't optimized yet. So we want to be really aggressive about getting the number that we know we want. We want to be 15% net, because that's going to enable us to invest more in fixing the other things. And so knowing pricing, and then executing on pricing so consistently that that you always make what you're expecting is really difficult. And we all know that. And it's, at the end of the day, the financial outcome is a result of the right price and the right execution, which I know comes later in ops. But right here, when you're scoring yourself, try to say, like, of these 5 areas that we're auditing, which one should I hyper focus on, or 2 or 3, so that I get the most improvement possible in the next 90 days. And so for everybody here, that's a really important thing to do, is just like really score yourself hard and then say which one would change our trajectory the fastest, which one would have the highest return on my time invested, which one is going to really drive the most impact if I fix it. And so it could be estimated versus actual hours if that metric is the biggest variance, but it could also be, hey, we're doing too much of the low profit work still, and we have to change our work mix, right? It could be something else. And so we actually rely on the metrics to tell us what we should be fixing as a company. And so when you're looking at the scorecard, if the labor variance is the most troublesome number, then we're going to prioritize that this month. But if it's actually revenue per hour is the most troublesome number, where, hey, look, we're just not selling enough of the good stuff, then we actually have to change our sales habits a little bit. Or maybe we just don't even have enough leads coming in to hit our revenue goal, which is an entirely different problem. And so what we really want to do is score ourselves hard so that it drives us more insight to the metric that isn't doing as well. And then we create initiatives around that one thing. And then we can go to our sales team and say, hey, you need to sell more high revenue per hour work. And then we can go to the frontline staff and say, hey, you need to get on top of that estimated versus actual hours. Then we can go over to the owner and say, hey, like, get off your wallet and buy the right equipment for the job because we're wasting a lot of time, right? And so now it's actually 3 problems that we're driving to the surface, and we're going to fix those things this month, and we will be more profitable next month because of it, and every month thereafter. And so we want to get right down into the weeds with these examples and kind of like grind ourselves a little bit. For me, in my annual CEO feedback report from my direct reports, if they're ranking me more than a 3 out of 5, I'm actually kind of upset because it just doesn't tell me like where I'm weak. Like, okay, maybe I'm a 4 on 1 or 2 things, but I should probably be a 2 or a 3 on quite a few things. Unless we run a perfect company, which we don't, somebody's got to tell me, hey, we're probably only a 2 or 3 out of 5 in this area. So then I go work on that area myself as a leader, and then I can coach everyone around me to fix it. And that's what we're trying to do here. So 22 out of 25 scores too high. That's my general feedback.
Yeah.
I'll let you off the hot seat for a while.
They're
That's okay.
our
I like
newest
being in the hot
Accelerator
seat.
member, Mark.
You're the newest? Oh, really?
They are, yeah.
Yeah.
That was totally my.
We haven't even got to the business assessment yet, so this is
Oh,
a good
wow,
start
okay.
for them to kick off on.
Oh, that's super cool. Yeah, good.
Yeah.
Well, you just got the fire hose on day 1.
That's okay. We welcome it.
Yeah,
We
good.
need it.
Well, welcome aboard. Glad to have you guys. I didn't recognize you, so that explains why. But
Yeah. I've been in the
Nice,
Q&As.
oh, good, good.
That's what led me here. Yeah.
Oh, excellent, good.
All righty, who's next? I
I
see
guess
Brady there.
I'll jump in there.
Oh, Clayton, awesome.
Yeah, so I gave our company a 14 out of 25 total score in this section. I scored myself pretty high on our revenue growth. We've doubled year over year for the past 3 years, and we're on track to do it again this year. So I feel like that's steady growth, but not too fast, not too slow either. But we do struggle a little bit with tracking our profitability and using the estimated versus actual. We just did use LMN last year. It's our first year with it. Our first kind of full like mowing season where we did all of our estimates using it. So like I feel like our numbers are a lot better. We did price increase a lot because of it, but on the flip side of that, we're not tracking like our actual versus our estimated. I just feel like we have a better estimated number, but we don't really know because we're not tracking. So I feel like that's where I need to focus in on this section for sure.
Yeah, that's perfect. So you identify that the growth isn't a problem anymore. I'm getting the growth rate. So I'm not going to hyperfixate on more marketing, more messaging, like we've got that. And that'll be a problem again later. Trust me, that just like ebbs and flows. But right now I got to get my costing dialed so that the field crews can perform according to the estimates. And then then my problem will change again, because once that problem's gone, then I got to scale again. And now I got to figure out how to get better leads and sell them at a higher revenue per hour than I used to in the past. And so your problems kind of just keep moving. And the fact that you're scoring yourself a little harder really helps, because now you're focusing on today's priority, knowing that you'll make a new one later. So I appreciate the approach. Good thinking there.
Thanks for the feedback too. I appreciate it.
Hey,
David
Kevin, I
Ellis.
saw you go off mute there. Yeah,
How you doing, brother? Good to see you.
good to see you.
Hey, one of the things that we've talked about that we need to work on better here is we are okay, not great, but we are okay at pricing on landscape jobs, project jobs, because you get to iterate quickly, right? So you miss one, you're like, okay, the next one I'm going to get that right. One of the challenges we have is monitoring and addressing pricing issues that recur on recurring annualized revenue. So if we sell a recurring contract that lasts a year, we don't do a really good job about when that year comes up, repricing that. And we tend to go too long on not building in cost of living increases or going back in and sitting down with the client and just saying, hey, so sorry, we missed it on this one. So just encourage everybody if anybody has an idea on how to do that better, we would love to hear that. But that's something we struggle with on a whole is adequately repricing on an annualized basis recurring revenue.
Kirsten, it looked like you came off mute there. I'm trying to watch everyone's screen.
I
Kyle, it also
did.
looks
I
like you
did.
raised your hand
I wish
there.
my husband was on this call because he would have a lot of insight on that. I'm not sure, Kevin, what kind of job costing system you're using, but over the winter months, I'm in Iowa. We update all of our job costing. We take cost of living. I mean, just everything.
Right.
Fuel, upload everything. And we also have the annual contracts for site maintenance, fertilization, and we do all of that over the winter, so we're not missing any
Good.
of that.
Good suggestion. We use Aspire, by the way, but yes,
That's
the
fine.
same thing. Yeah. But
Yeah. That's the only way that's just been our best practice. We did all manually previously, and we just saw our profits go up. We're above industry average here in Des Moines.
Good.
Kyle,
Thank
you had some feedback there as well.
Yeah, so I'm not in the landscaping side of things anymore. I'm in the services side, lawn and pest, so lawn care, pest control applications. One of the things that might be helpful, Kevin, the most helpful thing I've ever done is raising prices annually, no matter what. In order to do that, you have to think about that. Even if you're running a really fine-tuned machine, you're always going to be dropping those points to the bottom line at that point. But there's always going to be expenses that come up. It's easy to look at the economics, and the CPI might be fairly low, like it is right now in Canada, but oil's going down and therefore fuel prices. But if you look at those things as a cost sector of your business, it might have very little impact. In some businesses, it has a huge impact.
Right.
But you have to understand the biggest portions, and at the bare minimum, be raising your prices by the minimum of the consumer price index every year.
Right.
But during COVID, and so over the last 4 or 5 years, with my peers, there was years where it was 10, 12, 15% price increases. Now, those have leveled back because you have to balance and weigh what a consumer is willing to actually digest and take. But at the same time, you've got to reconcile that with not being afraid to lose some customers. You will regain, and in an industry where people should be always raising their prices to make sure that you've got not just cost recovery, but profit growth. You have to recognize other people will be losing customers that you'll pick up too. And sometimes it's just a bad taste in their mouth.
Right.
People just don't want to take that many prices increases from you, but they'll take one from someone else.
Yep.
We've grown through some pretty massive price increases, but even this year where we were starting to feel a little bit more kickback, it was still a 3.5% increase this year. But you've got to kind of decide that certainly in areas where you've got like an actual winter, you want to have that decided by September, October, what you're going to be probably doing for the next season, because your pricing starts going out, whether it's renewals, because you had mentioned for the recurring revenue, we're all recurring revenue or services. So that type of price increase goes out early October to existing clients, and it needs to be in place for quoting for new clients. So
Love it. Thank you.
Great. Okay, I think everybody's joined back into this room. Everybody, thanks for the share, Kyle. That was great. And Kevin, totally hear you. It's probably one of the most difficult things to do is really take the time to step back quarterly. I really recommend doing it quarterly and look at the production rates and compare those with the actual job costing to make sure that the pricing that you think is true is true. And so at least quarterly, you should probably be checking your production rates to make sure. Now, the easy way to do that is do job costing every day, and therefore the problems are popping up as they come up. But actually sitting back each quarter and then saying, hey, wait a minute, like we're consistently not doing well on open space commercial mowing, are you sure that the production rate that we're bidding with is accurate? Because we're having trouble on every crew with this one, not just 2 out of 20 crews, for example. And so we want to always use our job costing data as our big point of reference. And then I think the suggestions that we had from everybody else were spot on. We can't be afraid to raise the price. If we can't get the efficiency with the right equipment and the right training, sometimes we've got to just change the production rates that we're bidding with. And in my experience, I've seen a lot of larger operators really hurt themselves over a long period of time by not looking at those production rates. Just because they're in the estimating system doesn't mean they're right. We have to actually look at them and make sure that they work. Industry benchmarks are just that. They don't work everywhere. We've got different growing conditions and weather and soil conditions and cultures in just about every corner of the country. And we have to make sure that we understand exactly what the production rates are for our specific region and team and our ICP. Very different production rates doing the same work on an HOA than on a luxury residential or an industrial commercial or a retail commercial. So each ICP has different production rates. And of course, every company here has different equipment and a different approach. So we've got to really dial that in. It was a really good point to bring up though, Kevin. Thank you. All right, we are going to move on to the next category. Hopefully everybody got a little bit of a few ideas from those on the call. The point that I was making in the breakout that I joined this past session was that we want to score ourselves really hard. We don't want to be giving ourselves too big of a pat on the back. Now, we have to acknowledge where things are running perfectly smooth, but we also have to acknowledge where they're not. And the metrics tell us that, right? So let's look at the lagging metric and then start to really score ourselves harder around the things that drive that metric forward. So let's jump into people, and I'll try to be a little more in depth on my example this time, just to set you guys up for a little bit of a better exercise, better discussion. What we're trying to do here is build a muscle. We're going to try to get better and better and better at this each month, each quarter, and obviously each year, to the point where we're just always clear on exactly what we need to fix in order to keep a really balanced continuous improvement program so that we build an industry leader, a company that can be a platform in the case that you go to sell, or can be a platform in the case that you decide to build a behemoth, or just build a great company at whatever size and enjoy a great lifestyle. Whatever you're doing, you need to get the waste eliminated and you need to enable other people. And we just want to figure out what that one thing is that you're going to fix each week, each month, each year, that's going to make it better. Now, for people, what we're trying to do is we're trying to build a team that grows with the business. This is the most important thing to get right. Now, everybody will think it's profit. Everybody's going to think it's the machines, and everybody's going to think it's the sales team. The truth is, this is it. This is the leading indicator of everything in the business. Literally everything. The leading indicator is your ability to build a team that grows with the business. You included as the leader. Just because you sign the paychecks doesn't mean you know it all. I'm sorry. You don't know it all. Inside, you know that. In your mind, in your body, in your soul, you know that you don't know it all yet. Nobody in your company does. And that's why continuous improvement as a culture is so rewarding. And it relieves a lot of stress and anxiety. It's okay not to be perfect. We're just trying to make progress. Now, I'll say that again in a different way. The enemy of progress is perfection. The reason that most companies don't actually grow and improve is because the owner gets overwhelmed with all the work needed to be perfect, and they throw up their hands and give up and just go back to doing it the way they know how to do it. I say this all the time. As kids, when we get lost or we don't know where we are, our parents taught us this really common tool. Go back to the last place that you felt comfortable or you knew somebody. And us business owners, we do this all the time. In fact, all of us humans here on this call do it. Anytime we get over our skis and outside of our comfort zone, we retract back to the last place that we felt safe. It's just natural. What we're actually trying to do is hack that. As a team, when we bring everybody together, we can go beyond our perceived limits because we're tapping into the energy and the experience and the knowledge and the motivation of everybody on the team. So we can go a lot further if that strategy is clear and everybody's aligned to a common plan. Now, this is not an easy thing to get right. Let's be honest. This is the hardest thing to get right. That's why most of us ignore it. But the truth is that we can fix this with a few simple systems. Now, I think first off, our industry has a people problem. I think we've had a people problem for many, many years. I think the industry was kind of born, early 1920s. Landscape architects start building public space, Central Park gets built, homeowners start realizing that they need to put trees in and they want to make a nice property. And over the past 100 years or so, landscaping turns into this massive $250 billion a year industry. Well, it wasn't really that attractive to the highly educated elite until recently. They had already bought every other industry up and now they have nowhere else to look but in the trades. Hey, they own everything. That's why the empire is starting to fall, right? The rich have everything and now they're buying our business up too. It's just reality. What can you do about it? What I'll say is this. If you want to build a market leader, get better at building people, then anybody else in your business will be the best. Now, how do we do it? We have a people problem, and trust me, the people problem is not the laborers. The people problem is the people who use the word laborer. The leaders in this industry are the people problem. The problem is us, the leaders, the people here on this call. We don't know enough about evolving a business in order to evolve ours, let alone a whole industry. And so the industry is made up of a pile of business owners who are not all that sophisticated at running businesses, and therefore the businesses aren't scaling. We're not treating our workforce well enough for them to advance and us to grow as an industry, like, say, plumbers or other trades, that elevator mechanics or even carpenters that have much better income levels than the people in this business. So in order to fix it, we have to create a strategy. And trust me, every company here on this call will become a market leader if you do this better than everybody in your market. And I can tell you for sure, with complete confidence, that by the end of this year, you will do this better than everybody in your market. And then you just keep your foot on the gas and you will build a market leader, because market leaders are built by having an assembly of the best people focused on a strategy with an execution plan, with measurables, and with a continuous improvement mindset. Now that's what we're building. We're going to figure out how to use this career ladder to take people from apprentice to technician or tradesperson. And when I say technician or tradesperson, I'm saying people who know how to do the work. They know how to do the work properly. They know how to do the work within the labor allocation. They know how to make sure that customers are happy. They know how to make sure that the work is profitable, and they know how to do the work safely. And they always focus on efficiency because they understand what efficiency looks like. Now, this can't happen when we don't train people. We have to train people. We have to follow a career development plan. And we have to make sure that people get this opportunity to become professional tradespeople or technicians. Now, once we get them to that level, then and only then can we actually put them on a management training program that allows them to either lead crews or lead entire departments in the future, or move into other roles in the business. We need to make sure that we build people to a point where they have all the tribal knowledge needed to go out and perform the work, but most importantly, we need to give them enough tribal knowledge that they can replace themselves many times over. What we're talking about now is level 5 leadership. We need to build an entire team of people who understand that in order to move forward in their career, they have to figure out a way to replace themselves, which means they have to believe in the company SOPs and the company training plan, and they have to support it and mentor others to replace themselves. And in doing so, they elevate themselves and they move to the next level. Now, if everybody in the company is focused on continuous improvement, apprentices focused on gathering the skills to know how to do the work, once they get to be trades level, they're now pulling apprentices up to the trades level while they're focused on potentially moving to the management level. And this continues at every level. The manager is focused on developing tradespeople into managers so that they can move forward and become department managers. And the department managers are focused on pulling managers up into department management roles so they can lead at the executive level. Now, over the course of growth in your business, when you set a big vision and that vision is so grand that people can see that, hey, wait a minute, I'm not going to hit a glass ceiling here. Once I become a department manager in this company, because the plan is so much bigger, there's probably going to be another location, or there's probably going to be an acquisition, or there's probably going to be a market expansion or a new revenue line added, and I'll be able to join the department leadership team or the executive leadership team as the company grows, because those opportunities will be there. And because we practice level 5 leadership, I'm going to get pulled up into that position by the leaders that I report to. Now, as we create this continuous improvement model in our growth of people, what we actually do is we hack everything that's been holding us back. We design an org chart that allows us to just see, hey, what does the company need to look like a year from now in order to be the company that we want to be 3 years from now or 5 years from now? And so we create the ladders for the company with strategy, and then we create the ladders for the individuals with a career development roadmap or a career development plan. So as you find your gaps in people, I want you to think about initiatives that would actually solve those gaps. Now, back to what Kristen was saying. She was saying we need to use the 5 whys. When we figure out that there's a problem, we need to ask why 3, 4, 5 times until we get to the root cause. Otherwise, what happens is you keep on fixing all the surface problems, and the surface problems are just going to keep popping up, just like bad weeds. We have to get to the root of the problem. Now, when we start to get to the root of the problem, then and only then can we actually create initiatives that are really meaningful. Now, we want to get our scorecards deployed as quickly as possible as an initiative. We don't have that because we want to make our decisions on what to fix based on rational data. Now, in order to have rational data, we have to have scorecards, we have to have a monthly meeting, and we have to know exactly how people are doing. Are you actually finishing? Is our retention good with our employees? Is our employee net promoter score or happiness good? Are we actually completing our training? We have a training program, but do our employees actually follow it? We have to make sure that they're doing it. It's not enough to say, oh, I bought Greenius, so I've got a training program. It's not a checkbox. We need to look at the metrics to make sure we use it. There's no point in buying software and saying we have a training program if it's not fully deployed. You can't buy your way out of this problem. You have to actually do it. Now, we want to measure that in order to know how we're actually doing. Labor variance on our jobs. Hey, are our people capable of getting the work done in the time allotted according to our production rates? And if we can't get it done, then we've got to go back to the drawing board. We have to train people to be able to do the work. And then other things like revenue per employee. If we want to pay our staff fair wages and we want to continuously increase the money that we can pay our staff, we have to make sure that we track that our revenue per employee is going up over time, that we're attracting the right customers, that we're selling the high profit work, and that we're getting the work done fast enough to keep increasing revenue so that we can pay our staff living wages. Now, we have to get the scorecard rhythm in place so that we can talk about this every month to make sure that we point our cannons at the area that needs the most fixing. Now, we can't always know exactly what needs to be fixed, but we can get pretty close when we monitor the metrics. If, let's say, I had a lot of retention problems on one crew, there's probably something to work on with that crew leader. If my ENPS was great on 4 crews, but really bad on 3 crews, there's something going on with the management team on those 3 crews that needs addressing. My training completions, if one department is incredible at training, but one department's not doing training at all, it's probably the department leader that needs to be addressed. And so, again, the metrics tell me where my problems are so that I can fix them faster and also talk about problems rationally rather than coming across as emotional. And let's be honest, most business owners kind of come running into the room with the problem of the day, and their staff almost roll their eyes thinking, wow, this is today's problem. There's much bigger issues all around us, and this leader is just worried about this. It's almost laughable for a lot of employees. Now, when we actually use scorecards, I noticed that I'm missing an H on rhythm in my rearview mirror there. I hate spelling mistakes, sorry. Time blocking, weekly meetings, team huddles, and continuous improvement meetings become the delivery mechanism of the continuous improvements that we've come up with. Now, the time blocking piece is really important because, again, most leaders will tell you they don't have time to have more meetings. Well, they don't have time to have more meetings because they're running around dealing with chaos. And I'm certainly not saying to overbook yourself with meetings, but we do have to have weekly one-to-ones with our direct reports to coach them up. We do have to have team huddles every day to make sure that tactical plans are in place to allow us to work efficiently and do on-the-job training consistently as well. And then, of course, we need continuous improvement meetings at least monthly with the team so that we can get their feedback and address the problems or the flow interruptions or the resource gaps or skills gaps that they're identifying. So we have to learn to listen, and we need time in order to gather that information. And then, last and certainly not least, the SOPs and the supporting training programs have to be put in place to solve our biggest problems. Now, if my biggest problem is my mow crews are consistently coming back to the yard an hour late, I got to figure out why they're coming back an hour late. And so I'm going to figure out the source of the problem. Maybe the source of the problem is taking too long of breaks. Maybe they're not following an approved route. Maybe they're sitting in traffic longer than they should. Maybe they're stopping too many times throughout the day at 7-Eleven or the gas station. Who knows what the problem is? But once you figure out what it is, then you write an SOP to eliminate the problem, and then you roll out training on that SOP so that everybody knows what good looks like and the problem is put to rest. And anytime that problem pops back up, you just refer to the SOP and you retrain. And now if people are ignoring the SOPs, that's when we're going to look at corrective actions, or worse, moving to termination. But unless you have SOPs and training, it's pretty hard to judge your employees and say, well, hey, it's your fault. How do they know? We have to document it. We have to train to it. We have to set the standard and then hold people accountable. Accountability rests right below SOPs and training. And in most companies, there's no accountability. I'll say that once more. In most companies, there is no accountability because say it with me, there is no SOPs, or not enough. Now, that is the reality that we're trying to change. So as you get into this next section, I want you to do your self-assessment. I want you to be hard on yourselves when you're scoring. And we want to identify what the flow interruptions are, what the problems are in the business by asking 5 whys, so that we can come up with better initiatives that allow us to improve the metrics that are actually holding us back. And ultimately, we want to create a people growth ladder that enables us to just keep growing the business without sacrificing safety, quality, or efficiency along the way. We'll pop up the assessment questions right now, and I'll review them quick, and then you guys are going to move on over to the breakout rooms. All right, so first here, growing people and skills. We want you to score yourselves from 1 to 5. We're going to come up with a score of 25. And again, we want to be really, really hard on each one of these so we know which one we should actually focus on. So first, we have clearly defined roles and responsibilities for every team member. This means you've got a job description that's highly detailed, including metrics, with a supporting SOPs attached to the job description. If you don't have that, then I would rate yourself as a 1, because job descriptions with supporting SOPs and a training matrix are key, right? Now, number 2, employees regularly participate in training and development programs. Yes or no? It's black and white. Do you have training programs? Is it documented? Is it a combination of online, third party, and on the job? And are there records to support the fact that you have a training system? What I mean by this is, if I came in to buy your company tomorrow, the first question I'm going to say is, do you have a training program? And if you say yes, the second question I'm going to say is, can I see 3 years of reports indicating what training was taken on what day and time by what employee? In other words, can I see a training record by employee for the past 3 years that tells me exactly what training they have and when they took it? Number 3, our employee retention rate is high and turnover is minimal. And so what does that mean? Our retention rate is high and turnover is minimal? Simple. People stay here. They come on, they join, they do an apprenticeship, and they're still here 5 years later. Black and white. What is your turnover rate? Is it good or not? If it's too high, why is it too high? I'll tell you right now, I know what it is. Bad job ads, bad job descriptions, bad hires, and bad onboarding lead to a really high overturn on the first 90 days and the first 1 year. So we want to get that right. Next up, our team is motivated, engaged, and morale is consistently strong. Is it true or not true? How do you know? You do an ENPS survey. Don't go based on people smiling at you when they see you. Go by what they say when you give them a survey that allows them to give feedback in a way where it's not threatening and where they can actually tell the truth so that you know the truth. Now, again, most business owners don't want to know the truth, so they don't send out these employee surveys. But the reality is without them, you don't know. And so if you've not done any employee surveys, I would rank yourself really low on number 5. Again, I'm going to give you guys 5 minutes to go through and do this, and then you're going to get sent out into your breakout rooms for a conversation for about 15 minutes to share which one you rank the lowest on and what you are going to do about it, or ask the group for some ideas on what you could do about it. Don't tell us what you're best at. Tell us what you're worst at and what you think you should do about it. What we're going to do is jump into the next section. We're running a touch behind. I think I've been talking too much. So we're going to keep moving quickly. We're going to hop right into the operational section now. So we're not going to take quite as much time on these next 2 sections. What we're trying to do is build a muscle, right? We're trying to figure out how are we going to do an assessment, find the weakest link, and then double down on creating initiatives and supporting SMART goals and metrics that allow us to pinpoint what the problem is and then fill that skills gap or that void in systems with something that can be repeated and trained to everybody else in the company. So again, we're just going to keep doing the same thing, and you're going to get tired of hearing me talk about this month in, month out, month in, month out, but it's always going to be strategy, initiatives, SMART goals, metrics, scorecards, meetings, SOPs, and then we want to go back to our continuous improvement board to figure out what we're going to fix next, because we're never going to stop looking for the thing that's holding us back from reaching the next level. This starts to become a little bit more relaxing because as owners, we walk into just about every room and we find the weak link, and it almost drives us crazy because there's always something wrong. Now, as a leader, it starts to become kind of relaxing when you walk into the room, you see what's wrong, and you write it down on a continuous improvement board and say, that's not my biggest problem today, but one day after I fix my biggest problem, that might be my biggest problem. And although it's kind of small, hopefully one day comes where that's my biggest problem. In a crazy way, I just described the fact that keep fixing your big problems, and eventually your big problems are going to be little problems. Well, that's lean, right? We just keep on moving. So the loop is pretty simple to follow because it's a round circle. We don't ever get off of this treadmill. It's like round and around and around. And so if things not being perfect is stressful for you, what we want to do is reverse engineer that. We want things being perfect to be stressful for you. In other words, if everyone around you says everything's perfect, everything's really, really wrong, because it can never be perfect if your company's growing. And so what we want is we want to embrace the fact that there's something to fix all the time. And we don't want to place blame. We just want to figure out what it is. And then we want to work as a team to make it better without making anybody feel less than, without making anybody feel threatened, without losing trust. We should just be able to talk about what we need to get better at without people feeling like they got to go jump off a cliff because they're a failure. And unfortunately in our society, it's kind of gotten that way. It's like you're either perfect or you're garbage. And that's crazy. That is absolutely crazy. Everybody is here to get better, and continuous improvement allows us to do that. And the way that we do it is we get on this loop and we just never get off of this loop. The lean loop. We make plans, we go out and we do the thing we say we're going to do, then we check back at how it went, and then we make adjustments. Now, we can't do this if we don't have a way of keeping score. So the whole thing around check is the metrics, right? We have to have a metric to check in order to know what to adjust. And then we can shift our plans a little bit, and those plans might be job plans, SOPs, might be training. The plan is a combination of things. The do is the actual execution. And then we're going to keep referring back to the metrics, adjusting and changing the plan. Now, with lean as a way of operating, creating a culture of lean or a culture of continuous improvement, we have to have a strategy to enable that. Now, what does that strategy look like in your business? What is your strategy to get more lean? Now, there has to be a strategy and there has to be some initiatives. Now, we talk about 5S and the 9 types of waste. These two tools, I believe, really give you the foundation to figure out what you should go to work on. Now, you have to have a continuous improvement board in order to track all the ideas from people. So what we're doing here is the strategy, if you don't have continuous improvement boards in place, I would put that right at the top of the list, because in order to eliminate waste, we have to have a strategy to write down where the waste is. And so the continuous improvement board, the 5S workplace organization system, and the 9 types of waste become that general strategy. And so what we're saying is, we're going to make sure that we organize our workplace and that we eliminate the 9 types of waste systematically in our business. Now, once we use a CI board, continuous improvement board, our staff start telling us where the waste is. Materials taking too long to get here. We don't have good drawings. We can't figure out what we're here to do because there's no grades on the drawings, or we were told to go over here and take care of this property, but I don't have a written scope, or my account manager didn't bother to show up and tell me what they promised the client, right? There's so many variables. So we need to figure out what those are and track them. But then once we figure out what we need to fix, then we can go back and create some clear initiatives and say, hey, by the end of the year, we want to have estimated versus actual hours within 96% of bid. So we want only a 4% variance by the end of the year. That could be an initiative. Let's get there. Then we can create SMART goals that get us there by saying, hey, let's make sure that every morning our crews actually talk about where they're at for estimated versus actual hours by looking at their app and talking about it. And then let's make sure that they have daily huddles that talk about how they're going to get the work done on time and what the daily goal is. Where are we going to be at the end of the day? How long should the work done? And again, so those could be some initiatives for me. And then I'm going to, with these SMART goals, I'm going to say, let's break those initiatives down into a number of areas, like let's train the field staff to understand labor variance. Let's arm them with an app so that they can self-regulate. And then let's have a meeting once a month to review the metrics and the scorecards to make sure it happens. And so what metrics are we going to use, right? This might be estimated versus actual. It could be gross profit in your company, or maybe it's both, right? So we want to know what metrics are we going to use to track lean and make sure that we're actually eliminating waste systematically. Then, are we going to actually meet about this regularly? How often are we going to meet about it? What does our daily crew huddles look like? What does our weekly production meetings look like? What do our monthly scorecard meetings look like? What do our quarterly continuous improvement all hands meetings look like? How are we going to make this better, right? So again, we want to get really prescriptive. What are we going to do this month and this quarter to get more lean? So we want to document this. And then of course, what SOPs could we create that would eliminate waste systematically? And how can we train our staff to those SOPs to make sure we get better? In other words, hey, before we start a hardscape job, we're going to order all the material and we're going to have all the material drop shipped the day before the scheduled start. That would be an SOP that would eliminate all the waiting around for materials. And if that's not reasonable for whatever reason on a job site, then we're going to have a supporting SOP that says, in the case that we can't deliver the material to the job site, we're going to stage it at the yard, or we're going to make plans for just-in-time deliveries using a set schedule. But what we're not going to do is wait for our material and waste days of the crew showing up and not having either the equipment or the materials or the direction or the information needed to actually work efficiently. And so what we're trying to do here is we're trying to decide where are our biggest problems, what initiatives will we put forward, what supporting SMART goals are we going to use, how are we going to measure it, how often are we going to review the scorecard, and then what SOPs or training are we going to develop this month or this quarter to solve this problem permanently, or at least give us a crutch to go back to when we see the problem pop up over and over. I'm going to give you guys some time to do your assessment, and then we're going to jump into the breakout rooms again and talk about some of the pain points or the low points on the survey. Now, the survey questions, we've got documented standard operating procedures for all core tasks. That's a 1, a 2, a 3, 4, or 5. I'm going to say if you only have half documented, you're probably a 2. If you think you've got most documented, you're probably a 3, but you're probably not a 5. I don't think anybody's a 5 here. So let's be really hard on ourselves on SOPs. The good news is we're going to drop 100 SOPs for all of the common SOPs needed in your company on everybody who attends the strategic blueprint in July. You're going to walk out with my top 100 SOPs that are going to enable you to get to a 4 almost overnight. If you're not there, the good news is you're going to get there super fast this July at the strategic blueprint. Number 2, our scheduling and resource allocation processes minimize delays and efficiencies. It's either true or it's not. In most companies, it's not true. So don't rate yourself high here. There's a huge opportunity to be better here. Most companies that are doing more than 3 million could easily afford a full-time logistics manager just to take care of scheduling and resource allocation of materials and equipment and easily pay for that wage. I mean easily pay for that wage, but most owners are really risk adverse when it comes to overhead investments, and so they don't ever really proactively manage the resources on projects and contracts, and therefore always end up operating in that firefighting mindset. So what are you going to do that's going to actually change that problem? That's what we want to document. That could be write a job description, that could be write SOPs, it could be post the job to hire somebody, it could be onboard somebody over the next 90 days with supporting SOPs. There's got to be some meat on the bone here. We got to fix this one for sure. Number 3, we regularly identify and reduce waste in our operations. This is us actually using 5S and 9 types of waste to get better. If you don't have a program to identify and eliminate waste, you're going to have to rank yourself pretty low. Number 4, equipment and labor are utilized efficiently across all of our projects. This means we don't have estimated versus actual hour overruns or labor variance overruns. And our equipment is not sitting in the yard, sitting around collecting dust. We're actually utilizing it, we're invoicing for it, we're estimating with it in our prices, and we're recouping those costs. So we're very efficient in our acquisition and use and delivery of our equipment. And then number 5, teams participate in daily, weekly improvement meetings and discuss workflow optimization. My recommendation is 5 meetings per day for your field crews, team huddle in the morning to talk about estimated versus actual hours and what they're going to get done and what resources they need. Then after morning break, after lunch, afternoon break, and end of day, we do the same meeting. They don't take long, 5 meetings a day. It's continuous improvement at its finest. It's on-the-job training. Everybody knows what good looks like. Everybody knows what the plan is. Everybody knows what the expectations are, the production rates are, and how you're going to make it happen. Now, I want you to go ahead and rank yourself in these areas. Don't go easy on yourself, and we're going to come up with some really good supporting initiatives and SMART goals that are going to transform your business. And trust me, this all turns into much higher wages and much better profits and a business that is far more saleable when it comes time to retire. Welcome back, everybody. We're going to get back here. We are definitely going to run short on time on the last breakout. So I'm just going to cover this content, and you're going to do your self-assessment and come up with your strategy, initiatives, SMART goals, and whatnot on your own following the session. We're not going to have time to do this next breakout. But this last section is your customer. What we want to do is make sure that you've got the best customer experience possible. And so we want to think about this in terms of a funnel. I think most things with our customers, we should be really thinking about this in terms of, hey, what happens first? And then what happens as they go further into the journey? So funnels make sense here. First off, we want to say, are we really creating a super clear first impression? This is really important because ultimately we have to ask ourselves if that first touch point, whether it's the website, whether it's the way you answer the phone or email, is it actually as good as it could be? customer calls in or customer goes to the website, is there friction to get the first meeting? How fast is it? What's that turnaround time like? When I land on the website, does the website really speak to me in terms of the messaging? Does it really speak to my ICP and my likely pain points? That's what we really want to be clear on is, are we clearly sharing our value to our ICP wherever they first make contact with us? So we want to make sure we've got that one right. And then we want to ask ourselves, hey, wait a minute, do we really communicate at a 10 out of 10? Because let's be honest, most of us don't. And what we all define as the perfect customer experience is not perfection in service delivery. It's perfection in communication. When I get to a hotel and my room's not ready, it bugs me. But you know what? In the fine print, it said the room's not ready till 4 o'clock. If I get to 4 o'clock and the room's not ready, I'm going to probably be a little bit frustrated. But if I got a text at 3:59 that said, your room's not quite ready, but in 15 minutes, we're definitely going to have it ready. Although irritating, I'd probably order another drink at the bar and I'll get to the room in 15 minutes. It's not the end of the world. But if I leave the bar and walk over to the front desk and then they tell me it's going to be 15 more minutes, now I'm a little bit more irritated because I've already left my comfort zone. Where I'm going with this is great communication kind of overcomes just about every other mistake we make, but it's usually the biggest mistake we make. So finding a way to actually communicate more proactively, whether it be automated bookings, automated discovery calls right from the website, automated notifications when the crew's coming or when they did service, automated billing, automated customer portals where they can log in and see the account history or the service history, pre and post pictures of the work, this type of thing. We want to create these communication loops that really kind of take people into the modern age where they expect to be, given the experience they get everywhere else they go, whether it be ordering an Uber, ordering food, ordering groceries, booking a hotel room, or booking a vacation. This day and age, the communication is very automated. We go on Amazon, we order something. When we get it, we can look and see whether or not we got it. It's simple stuff that everybody expects, but most landscape companies are not delivering. So we want to make sure we've got that right. And then we want this wow delivery. This is big. Like when your crew is finished, does the customer say, wow, that was a good experience? We asked for something and we got it exactly the way we expected. It looks, acts, and functions the way they said it would, and they came and did it when they said they would. It's kind of strange, but these people actually say what they do and do what they say. I've had a wow experience. Now, if I have, I've turned my customers into loyal fans. I sold them something that I knew they needed because I understand them as my ICP. I understand what their pain points are. I've crafted the solution that helps solve their problem. And when they leave, they say, wow. They don't say, damn, I got taken again, right? There's a big difference there. Now, have you created a company that actually has wow delivery? And if you haven't, it's okay. Most of us haven't. We're here to make it better, right? We're here to say, what is the strategy to create wow delivery? How are we going to turn our customers into loyal fans? What are the initiatives that we're going to kick off? What are the supporting SMART goals so that those initiatives become our new reality? And then what metrics are we going to use to actually score this to make sure it's working so that we can make rational decisions about where to spend time training and improving and developing systems and training. And then when this is all solved, what are we going to fix next? And again, that's the continuous improvement board. We want to have a continuous improvement board in each area of the business so we keep fixing all 4 pillars and we keep aligned. We want to keep moving the company forward consistently in all 4 areas. And within each of those areas, we want to really assess 4 or 5 key areas like we did here today so that we can get really specific about what we fix using ration and data instead of our emotional response, which, let's be honest, most of us who got into this business because we wanted to be great landscapers likely got into this business making emotional decisions, and that became a habit or a story that then becomes the way we operate. But when we actually start to look at metrics and make decisions based on what the data tells us, we move a lot faster. We fix the hard things. We face our problems. We point our cannons in the direction of the thing that needs to be eliminated, and we go through it. We go through it consistently, and that's what we're here to do with the operating system. I'll just read the questions and expand on what they are just to make sure that you score yourself really hard and you give yourself a hard beating. The questions on the customer experience. We actively gather customer feedback and we use it to improve our services. This is sending customer satisfaction surveys and then actually acting on what they say. If you do it, great. If you don't, it's a 0. Pretty simple. We need to get feedback. I'm not talking about your Google reviews. I'm talking about when you finish a service or on an ongoing contract, actually surveying your customers for NPS or customer satisfaction scores to find out if they're happy and where they're not so that you can fix the thing that's causing the score to be low. Number 2 is customer satisfaction's high and we regularly receive positive reviews. This is your reviews. Now, again, pretty black and white. It's either good or it's not. If you're not getting enough reviews, you got to ask yourself if you're asking for them. That might be your initiative or your SMART goal. We resolve our customer complaints quickly and effectively. Yes or no? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. There's a little room there for sure, but I think we all know whether or not we're actually quick. Do we have a 24-hour turnaround or not? And then we have a structured process for upselling, cross-selling to our existing clients, and we're hitting our targets consistently on our upsell, cross-sell, or enhancement revenue. Again, just want to explain the few, but let's jump into those questions.
Thank you, Mark. Okay, we do have one question here. Yosef would like to know, how do you balance and prioritize tasks that are short-term but are a bottleneck for others on the team versus tasks that are long-term but take less priority over tasks that others are relying on?
Really great question. I think I always go back to automate, delegate, and eliminate. So anything I can possibly automate, I'm going to automate with technology or by putting it in my calendar. So I just put the time in. That's automation, believe it or not, just putting in a calendar block where I actually go and put the time into solving the problem. That's a form of automation. Another would be eliminate, like what are all the steps in the process? Could I just wipe out a quarter of the steps or half the steps so that I can save time just through elimination of too many steps or too many people sometimes involved in a process is a big one. And then the bigger of the bunch is delegate, right? How quickly can I write an SOP that will enable me to attach this to somebody else's job description or everybody else's job description so that I no longer have to waste my time doing this? And by focusing on automate, eliminate, and delegate, that frees up my time to work more on strategic improvements that are a little bigger fish to fry. Now, the question, I hear and feel the question, where do I start? I don't have any time. You just keep focusing on the thing that has the highest return on investment. For the time I put into this, I'm going to solve my biggest problem. And when that problem's gone, I'm going to go to my second biggest problem. And eventually, you get to a set of problems that are relatively minute, and you're just kind of managing on strategic level. Now, this happens over time, right? We're going through a continuous improvement program that gets you there over the course of a year, and then you continuously refine it for the next 5 years. But you got to start somewhere. And my answer to your question is start with your biggest problems and just keep facing the thing that seems to be the biggest problem that's holding you back the most, day after day after day.
Great answer. For our Accelerator members, the conversation on continuous improvement is not done. We want you to bring your business assessment to the next 4 sprints, where we are going to deep dive even further into each of our 4 pillars. So people, operations, customer, and finance. We're going to spend time with you guys talking through the development of your SMART goals, utilizing your continuous improvement boards, and ensuring that you really are focused on how to take this to the next level and ensure that you are continuously improving. We've got 3 standard operating procedures that were dropped in the chat here for you. They are going to be associated to our events as well. So if you registered through the community to attend this webinar today, you can check back there later. The SOPs will be in there. And also in our accelerator groups, we'll make sure that you have your hands on those. Thank you, Kristen, for dropping them in the chat. We just want to ensure that you take this momentum, you take that business assessment, and you start making those continuous improvements within your business. Okay, we're over time.
One more, Kristen, I just wanted to point out, for anybody who's here, we give 1 free access to an event for any new company that has not attended an event in the past. So this means if you have a friend, if you have a frenemy, or you have a company in mind that you might be looking to acquire in the future, go ahead and invite them to join us. You can give them 2 free tickets. That's $6,000 worth of free tickets to come to the event in Charlotte or any event thereafter. Just reach out to your guide, let them know that you want to invite this other company to the event, and we'll give you 2 free tickets in your name to invite them. And we really want to get as many people into the community as possible, as quickly as possible. So we would really appreciate you doing so. And if you do bring some other people along, you might just get entered into a pretty big draw at that event. So if you show up with some guests, you might be surprised what you end up with leaving there. We've got a few extra seats available. We're going to have 500 people at this event. We want to fill every chair. I think we're around 70% sold out right now. And we're sure we're going to sell it out, and we do want your help. So thanks for being here. We really appreciate everybody making the time to show up here like this. We know how hard it is. I know how hard it is. I've been in your shoes. It's real hard to sit in the office when it feels like your tail's on fire. But at the end of the day, you've got to fix the big problems. And sometimes it's great just to get another perspective from your peers and mentors in the industry. You move faster. Sometimes just stepping out of the day-to-day and letting the fires burn is the best thing to do. But thank you all for being here, and all the best. Look forward to this month's sprint calls.